Hello, actors. It's Noel from the Actors Feedback Forum, and the interwebs is abuzz with news about industry standards for self-taped auditions. Okay, I might be exaggerating a little bit for effect, but there has been discussion recently online about certain aspects of our self-taping process becoming basically industry standardized of late. Which is good news for actors because up until now, self-taping has sort of been the wild, wild west. But apparently, certain things are starting to become fairly commonplace in the industry in terms of the instructions being given to actors by various casting directors and their assistants. Some of these things include what is probably obvious: good lighting, good sound, a horizontal format, not TikToker style, a good reader, not a distracting background, a plain, preferably gray or some other muted color behind you. When I asked a trusted industry expert about these industry standards, the response was, yes, I think there are a handful of widely accepted standard practices now when it comes to self-tapes. Stationary camera, such as on a tripod, horizontal framing, minimize distractions, one reader off camera. That doesn't mean that an actor can't deviate from these and still turn in a great audition. If your scene calls for more than one character to be your scene partner, how do you approach that in your self-taped audition? Do you have one actor help you by reading all of those other characters' parts in the same voicing? Do you find more than one actor friend to help you and combine some of those roles into one or two parts so that you can have two or three different actors reading with you during your self-tape? Do you ask one actor to create different voices for the different characters so they sound different when they read each other character's line? A successful actor friend of mine said, I'll throw in different voices when I'm the reader. Not enough, I hope, to be distracting, but enough so that you can tell it's different people. In fact, some industry experts feel so strongly about it, they have choice words to say. Now, ignore the ring light, which I think is a definite no-go, but I digress. Acting coach Joseph Perlman is quoted as saying, don't use a different voice for each character. A reader should use the same voice for the entire scene, even if there are multiple characters involved. However, that same industry expert, Joseph Perlman, wrote this advice in another column and used even more choice wording that I don't agree with. And I quote, some readers, and I cringe to write this, will use different voices for each character when reading a scene with multiple characters. Please, period, don't, period. It's very distracting, clueless, and comical. It is the verbal equivalent of slipping on a banana peel. It pretty much guarantees the attention will be taken away from the actor auditioning. Now, those are much stronger words, and I don't necessarily agree with his tone, especially since he's an acting coach and an industry expert. However, there's one opinion for you to consider. It has been suggested that most casting people want to hear only one reader in the self-taped audition, regardless of how many other characters there are in the scene with you. I suppose that's one way to go, but in my humble opinion, to me, that's always a little bit distracting and confusing. Not only as the actor in the scene, but when I play it back and I watch the self-tape with a reader doing all the other characters in the same voicing, it starts to become kind of distracting because you don't know who's saying what when, and if I'm trying to react to the different characters by alternating my eye lines to them, but the dialogue is coming from the same place and it's the same voice, it can be a little bit muddied up. And I think that it makes sense for us to strive for the least amount of possible confusion in our self-taped auditions as we can, because that's just going to become one more thing distracting the casting person from our performance. If they start to get a little bit confused by the dialogue as it's being said by the same actor, for different characters, and that takes them away from my audition performance, that's no better than if they got distracted by something I personally did. They're still getting distracted. Another casting director friend of mine agrees with the industry standards and says, put it this way, if you were going for a live audition, there would be one reader. The person watching the self-tape is only watching and listening to you. Therefore, the distraction of different voices and characters impacts the person watching the tape more. You should only be concerned with your performance. As an actor, you should be able to perform your scene with no regard to the reader. Okay. The audition is not expected to be a full-on performance of the scene. In short, yes, I follow and agree with the industry standard. I don't know about the part where they said an actor is supposed to perform the scene with no regard to the reader. That seems like the exact opposite to me of the purpose of a reader. Many experts say that your reader should be a skilled actor rather than just someone that you ask to help, like a family member, so that they can act the part sufficiently enough to give you what you need to react appropriately in the scene. The whole point of a scene is to react to your scene partners. Otherwise, we could just do monologues for our audition tapes. So I don't necessarily agree with the part about us being able to perform with no regard to the reader. I think the exact opposite is true. We absolutely need to react to our readers. That's the whole point of having a reader. But again, it's good to know that another industry expert is saying that yes, there are indeed industry standards coming into place. I tend to think that it makes more sense to avoid confusion, and that would be a better industry standard than whether or not you have one reader doing all of the other characters. If the scene is complicated and it makes more sense to have more than one reader helping you out so that it eliminates that complication and that confusion and that possible distraction for the casting person who is watching your audition, then I think that makes perfectly good sense to have more than one reader help you out. Or if you can't find more than one actor friend to help you, have your one actor friend read the characters in different voices. Now, more than one actor friend of mine has said that they do this and suggested that it works and has worked for them. The caveat being that when they do create different voices for the other characters in the scene, they make sure that they're not doing it to a degree that becomes distracting from the scene or from the auditioning actor's performance. So like everything else in a self-tape, it's important that when you coach your reader friends, your actor friends who are reading for you, you make sure that they understand. If you're going to do more than one voice for these different characters, just make sure it's not so extreme that it takes away from the focus of the audition. A well-known casting director friend of mine said, "That would be hard for me to answer because every casting director is different. I personally don't see a problem either way as long as I get to hear my talent do what they're supposed to do." I guess the bottom line for me is I don't want an industry standard to remove what might be an effective tool from my actor's tool belt. If it helps me to present a more authentic performance and a more effective self-taped audition. What do you think about this? Have you done self-tapes with multiple readers and gotten the role? Has the self-tape succeeded for you? Have you done self-tapes with one reader doing different voices and gotten the role? I'd love to hear from you in the comments. So tell me what you think about multiple readers and industry standards for self-taped auditions. Until next time, keep doing the work. Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to the channel. And remember, if you want to join a bunch of your fellow actors who are serious and dedicated and will motivate you to keep doing the work, please visit actorsfeedbackforum.com. Link in the description. See you next video.